Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. Can you believe it is November already? It is insane. And oh, by the way, we're kicking off this brand new month and we're dedicating it to the theme of crossover tech. What am I talking about? I'm talking about dual use technologies, tech that you can use both on the military side and the civilian side. And what better company to sponsor this month than Kongsberg Geospatial, because they have a very deep and rich history on the defense side, their parent company, and they're doing incredible things on the commercial side as well. So today we have with us Adam Robinson from Kongsberg Geospatial, who has actually a defense background. So welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's a great way to start. I mean, Veterans Day is in a couple weeks, and I thank you for your service. Tell us a little bit about your background.
A little bit about myself. I graduated the United States Naval Academy, and I was a naval aviator. After that, I flew P3s for the Navy for a little over 9 years before I left active duty. Went in oil and gas for a few years. Went out and got my master's degree in technology commercialization at UT Austin, and then got recruited back into the defense world. I started as a program manager for a pretty large defense company. Then went to the dark side of business development, and have been there for quite some time now. I've been with Kongsberg Geospatial a little over 10 years now.
And can you explain exactly what your role is with Kongsberg Geospatial?
Yeah, so I basically lead all of our business development efforts in the United States. So pretty much I focus on the defense side of the house and not much on the commercial side.
Right. We're going to talk a little bit about both, but we're definitely going to focus on the defense side. I know that's your primary lane here, but let's talk about Kongsberg, because Kongsberg is a defense contractor. I mean, I think most people recognize the company. Tell us about Kongsberg, and then the connection to Kongsberg Geospatial.
Yeah, so Kongsberg now is a very large international defense company based out of Norway. I think I've lost track of the head count with some of the acquisitions they've done over the last few years, including like Rolls-Royce Marine and Patria and some other companies. So it's a very large company, large international presence. We are a wholly owned subsidiary of Kongsberg. That's why we are Kongsberg Geospatial, and we are headquartered in up in Canada in Ottawa.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Kongsberg Geospatial then.
Yeah, so Kongsberg Geospatial is a little over 30 years old now. It was a startup company in Ottawa, and it started with our main focus of geospatial visualization, and it grew over the years. And then one of the biggest changes for the company would have been back in 2006 when the actual Kongsberg acquired the company. Kongsberg had been using our product for quite some time, and someone had the brilliant idea for standardizing using this product. Why don't we just acquire the company and help grow it? And that's kind of how we got to where we are today.
Absolutely, and I think the product you're referring to is the Teralens product. So tell us a little bit about what this is.
So Teralens is a high-performance software development toolkit. It used to be known as Intermatics, which was kind of a lot to say, and then the map was capitalized in the middle of the word. So from a marketing standpoint, it wasn't the greatest name. So we changed it to Teralens. It's been around for quite some time, but it is a software development toolkit that has lots of different types of capabilities, and it is used by software developers to develop real-time situational awareness and command and control applications.
And this is, I think you guys are up to what, the 9th generation of this particular product?
Yes, actually, as of today is our official release date for what we call version 9.4 of our Teralens product.
All right, everybody, you heard it here first. And by the way, we are live. I just want to remind everybody about that. Please jump in the chat, say hello, ask Adam your questions. We love to hear everything, including, of course, positive encouragement. So let's get those comments flowing here today. So that's awesome. 9.4, you just said today's the big release. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I want to walk through this thing because it's, let's call it the baseline. Not only is it kind of the baseline for so many defense different products, multi-domain, air, land, sea, subsurface, I believe as well.
Yep.
But also on the commercial side. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, I want to talk about, and we're going to use the acronym here, Adam. We're both former military. So HMI, human machine interface, so important.
Yes.
And humans are interfacing with technology, and how does that all work? Tell us a little bit about the approach you guys took to HMI with this particular software and the related platforms.
Yeah, so there's really kind of two levels. When you look at Teralens, it's really the building blocks of what that HMI is going to look like. And then you can use our product to develop all the widgets and everything and the structural foundation of the application. But a lot of times we'll use third-party applications like Qt or QML. It's all part of the Qt family to develop that actual interface. And so we've got many engineers that have gone through human factors training, looking at user stories, really sitting down with the customer and trying to figure out, here's the big picture of what I'm trying to do. I'm getting this information from these sources. I need to look at it. I need to make, mission critical decisions based off the information that's presented to me. How can I do that in the most efficient and fast and safe way to execute what my mission actually is? So having those engineers with the knowledge of what human factors design is, and along with staying up to date with all the different technologies to develop a modern, fast, and easy to use application.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think some people don't quite appreciate that HMI is like a whole branch of scientific research and study because, like you said, there could be a whole host of different kind of data streams or information coming at a person all at once, and that actually can become a safety factor.
Very much so.
Like where there's just information overload, and if it's not what you need to make your decision, and it's just a big distraction, that could, in a worst case scenario, cause, a horrific catastrophe, really.
Very much so.
Yeah. So the HMI interface is critically important. So let's talk about some of these real world applications, because I kind of alluded to the different domains where Teralens is being integrated into. Can you give us, let's start with maritime. Can you give us an example of a maritime integration of Teralens?
Yep, and it's a very large program. So we are part of the U.S. Navy Aegis weapon system. So when a naval operator is sitting in the command and control center and they're looking at the display that's showing the ship's location, all the tracks around, all the map base, everything, that application was developed using Teralens. We've been part of that program, I think, for a little over 15 years now, and it's an impressive. It's a very nice feather in our cap for programs that we're a part of, and it also, I think, illustrates some of the pedigree that our software is a part of.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's multi-domain. So let's talk about ground robots or vehicles. Can you give an example there?
Yeah, so we are also a part of the U.S. Army's Joint Battle Command Platform program, which is, I believe, at last count, there's over 110,000 of those systems fielded today. So pretty much any Army vehicle that has a mounted display in it runs this application. And Teralens is the building blocks for that program as well.
That is unbelievable. And of course, one of my favorites, air. Can you give us a good example of that application as well?
Yeah, two quick ones that come to mind. We are in the NATO AWACS program. So when that airplane's up, getting lots of tracks all over Europe, and it's highly being used today, as you can imagine, of events that are happening.
Yeah.
We're also in the same note, we're part of the UK and Australian Wedgetail program, which I believe, if I'm correct, the Australian version of that wedge tail is also in Europe right now.
Unbelievable. So, like so many defense technology or defense related technologies, I'll say, there's just such a great commercial application. I mean, as you said, you've literally battle proven Teralens across all, not only all the services in the US, but also globally and with NATO. And then you met this guy called Thomas Jimenez, and he came forward and said, hey, there could be a really cool commercial application here. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing on that side.
Yeah, so and like many of your viewers, I'm sure are aware of, have been heard of our Iris family of products, and so Iris Terminal and Iris GCS, those there are systems, but when you look at the actual display application of them, they're built on Teralens. So it's an example of a modern look and feel using our engineers who just developed that look and feel for those operators. And it's a little bit different, not looking at maybe dropping weapons on somebody, but now you're looking at inspecting maybe power lines, or you're looking at inspecting railroads or agriculture or many different things. And it's just still a very mission critical application that's being used for, but just in a different domain.
Yeah, absolutely. So, everybody out there, by the way, Thomas was, I worked with Thomas and Kongsberg Geospatial on a worldwide premiere of the Iris terminal. We'll drop that link here shortly. It's on YouTube. But really, when you think about obtaining beyond visual line of sight waivers, the ability to see all the different information that's safety critical in one place is what Iris is all about. And I know, I think Thomas was at Commercial UAV recently. You guys had a booth there. I actually sat down with him at the AAM Summit. So there's another application on the commercial side, in the FAA Drone Symposium in Baltimore in August. And then I believe we first connected at the Energy Drone Robotics Coalition Summit, if I recall correctly, because I know there's significant energy, and that's your background a little bit, energy applications on the drone and robotics side as well. So really, really cool. All right. So let's talk about we talked about some of the diversity of the hardware kind of type systems. Tell me about all the different software. I mean, we work quite a bit, Mike, my producer, and myself, with the Drone Code Foundation. They're an open source platform, they work with Linux. What are you kind of integratable, if that's a word, with on the software side of the house?
So I would say the majority of our customers today are either operating on Windows or on Linux, and we have a bunch on both sides. We still support some customers that are operating on Solaris, and we also have some customers that are operating on some of the real-time operating systems out there. So when you're looking at true real-time performance, that's really where Teralens shines. We also have the ability to deploy in a web environment and on an Android environment if needed, but we really focus our efforts mainly on Windows and Linux today.
I just think that range of different software interfaces that you're able to plug and play with just kind of goes to show the versatility, but also the fact that what you do is completely customizable. Is that correct?
Yes. The good thing about Teralens and the length of time that we've been using it and developing on it, it has a very wide use case ability. Like you said, pretty much there's an operating system that people are using, we can support it. And it's same when it comes to the tools that people use to actually develop software. So whatever that environment is, whatever tools they are using, generally we're able to support. And if they stay with us as a maintenance and support customer, we ensure that we keep that environment as well. So as we develop new versions of Teralens, we test to their environment just to make sure that we haven't, nothing in our technology stack has, been disrupted by our future developments. We maintain that backwards compatibility for our customers.
Very good. And by the way, everybody, Adam had a tremendous conversation with Maggie Schuster last week on Clubhouse. So if you missed that, go back and listen to the replay. That's on my LinkedIn. It's also, of course, You can find it if you dig deep enough into the Clubhouse app, which continues to move things around. Good times. But a picture paints 1,000 words. And, Clubhouse is just audio chat. I really want to pop up this next picture of your Teralens product and kind of show, that kind of user interface, that HMI, what people see on the screen. So we've got this image up. Can you tell us, walk us through what we're seeing here?
So this is a coastal defense and maritime awareness application that was developed using Teralens. So there's a bunch of different sensors that come in, radar, for example. They also have some video feeds. So they're very looking at the ports in the area, making sure that the ships that are either at anchor or that are coming into that port, or who they are and who they say they are. They also will have boxes around the ships to make sure, believe it or not, ships go at anchor and they start drifting, and the ship itself may not even recognize that it's drifting, but their application can alert the operator that, hey, the position of this ship has moved so much, and brings up, an alert and saying you should keep an eye on this. Maybe there's a problem here. Yeah, this is just an example of a coastal defense system and maritime awareness application that is developed using our Teralens application, our software toolkit.
Well, it's all good. This is live, it makes it real. Believe me, I trip over my words all the time. So this, I think, is a great illustration of risk reduction and really the advantages of using something like Teralens, as you said, the building block for whatever system you're trying to prove. As I watched that, Adam, and I was listening to you, I was thinking not only just kind of drones beyond visual line of sight, I was thinking UAS traffic management, because if you're talking, I was thinking remote identification for drone, because when you're at counter drone on either the military side, since this is crossover tech month, or, the commercial side, and I do air quotes because right now, you probably know this, on the civil side, we don't have very many authorities, almost none, for folks to employ counter drone technologies. But when we do, hopefully soon, this kind of thing would be phenomenal for that visualization of what we're looking at in any given, area of responsibility, or as we call it in the military, AOR.
Exactly. Whether it could be integrating those types of systems with our Iris product, or if there's a customer out there that wants to have its own code and its own application, then Teralens is that building block that can be used. And yeah, you're right. When you start looking at where our software is used, and it's used in weapon systems, so it's the precision's there, the trust in our software is there. And I'll go back to the Aegis weapon system. Our software is a part of that product that's taking one missile to shoot another missile out of the air. So when you're starting to look at the pedigree and the experience and the trust that these very large defense contractors have in our software, I think it helps us when you're starting to look at maybe competing tools that don't have that pedigree and that kind of background. That we've been there. Our software is used in these environments, and it's been tested over and over and over and over, and continues to be tested on a daily basis by our end users and internal. That you're buying a mature piece of software that has done lots of different things over the years if you purchase Teralens.
When I think about the term precision, I think about accuracy, but timing, as you kind of alluded to indirectly, is critical, not just in military operations, but of course on the commercial side as well. Can you give us some insight into the timing of the data that flows across Teralens? In other words, let's just say there are applications out there, maybe, I don't want to say comparable, but just say applications out there that'll use this terminology near real time. And I'm doing air quotes here for a reason, whatever that means. Right. Can you kind of get granular with us on the timing aspect of the data that's flowing?
Yeah, and it really depends on the different systems that we're getting feeds from. Uh, I will say that I can't get in a lot of the details, but there's a lot of different defense contractors when they start a new program that's going to require software like ours. They'll go out and they'll do an analysis of alternatives, or they'll take software like ours, build maybe some sample code, and then start throwing data through it to see how fast does it get through our code, and then how fast does it get to the screen, how fast can we load imagery, how fast can we load different types of map data, and then start slamming it with tracks. So like up to 100,000 tracks to see. And I will say, since in the 10 years I've been there, I am not aware of a study where we have not come out first in the performance category. So I think that says a lot about, and our engineers focus on that. I think the two things that where our product stands out, one is in our performance, and today with modern GPUs, uh, you can fix some of those problems in some of the competitors, but a lot of people don't want to spend the money on those super high end GPUs, and it's not a requirement for us to run on those. And I would say the other area that we really stand out is in our customer support. Our customer support is world class, and I consistently get feedback from my customers about how happy they are with our customer support. They send an email, they make a call, instantly they get a response. And even people that have not chosen our product for one reason or the other, maybe they decide to do some development internal, or maybe the program didn't move forward. I've always gotten responses about, we haven't spent a dime on you guys, but the response from your engineering team has been amazing. And, and that sticks with developers as they go through from different companies, as they grow in roles. So a lot of times we'll get a return customer, or a customer coming to us that's like, 5 years ago I talked to you guys and we ended up not doing that program, but I remember how well you guys supported us in the evaluation phase. And so now I have a need and I want to use your product. So it's pretty amazing having those kinds of interactions.
It is, first of all, that's a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. I mean, how many interactions have you had, either real world or digitally, where customer service is like horrible? And you're absolutely right. That personal touch and timing is everything, not just on the battlefield where you're making split second decisions using Teralens, but also when you have a question because you're in the middle of programming something and you need an answer, right? So that's awesome. That's really great to hear. And we have another image I want to pop up here, to, again, images being what you guys do, and your bread and butter. Tell us a little bit what we're seeing here and the different range of features that you can highlight on this particular screen with Teralens.
So this is an example of an application that's using Qt. And so at the top, you can see there's like a card system that you can have different feeds there. It could be video feeds. It could be just about anything. But there's also 2D and 3D windows, and you can resize this to up to 4 different screens that are shown in the one. In the bottom part of the large screen in the 2D format, there's example of a S57 map. So it's a nautical map, and there's tons of information in that map layer. Uh, it talks about buoys, their locations, depths of the water, shipwrecks. All this stuff is in a form that you've got to be able to process quickly and to be able to display. So it looks kind of simple, but yet it's not simple. But that's just an example, and part of one of the newer features in 9.4, the S57 map series has been around for a while. Now there's a newer one called S101 that has even more information and more details. That's one of the newer features that we support in the new release of Teralens 9.4.
Well, he doesn't really watch my show, my own husband. But don't tell him that I said this, but I know how important buoys and underwater objects are. We were on vacation last year and we rented a boat, or driving around Lake Winnipesaukee, and all of a sudden I hear crunch, and I'm like, this can't be good. And sure enough, we had missed the buoy. We were in a really rocky area, and so that was just a recreational float, right? Could you imagine if this was a real world operation? question whether on the military or commercial side, that kind of data is absolutely critical. So here's my question then. You talked about customization. Can you give real world warnings that will alert the operator before they're about to hit that rocky area and ground their vehicle?
You can for sure. Some of that is more in the application layer of the product when you're developing it, but the Teralens you can write into our APIs to have that kind of heads up, and we do that very much in our Iris family of products. When we start looking at a UAV versus terrain or UAV versus some sort of other airborne object, where we give those operators an alert to be like, hey, you need to look at this and maybe take a course of action to avoid it.
Yeah, operating in that kind of third dimensional space is very different, probably. I guess it's technically 3D on the ground, but I just feel like in the air, it's just different. And so I think we have an image of this as well, where we're visualizing some airspace here. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so first I'll give a plug out to Maxar. This is the actual imagery that you're seeing is provided by them, and I believe it's downtown Vancouver, if I remember correctly. They provide some very high detail map data, and they've been very good to us with different demos of our products using some of their data. So I'd like to give those guys a little plug there if you've got any questions about that type of data. But this is an example of using our Iris platform, where they're looking at using a delivery or a drone to deliver an object. Could be anything, but just to give it a 3D ability to, and you can, if this was live, I could put it in a view like I'm that actual drone, so I can see where I'm flying and where you are in respect to all those different buildings and whatever other objects in the terrain. But it just gives an example of how high a resolution, and we can go even higher than that our software can display, and it's just a really beautiful application. When you're looking at that, it's just pretty shocking of where imagery and these map products have come over the last, even 10 years. If you go back to, my days of flying in the P3 in the late 90s to the early 2000s, we were just kind of happy that we had these little red lines that showed a coastline on our display. And today you're like, oh my God, I couldn't believe people operate that way, but now with the way modern applications are in computing, you can have some really impressive user interfaces.
Well, especially like that 3D model, if you will, it's almost like you're kind of in it, like in a video game or something. It just takes you right there.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to take a second and I want to just kind of do a recap and really walk through these products to be clear. So the first one and the main one we've been talking about is your Teralens real-time geospatial SDK,
Yes.
right? And that is the mapping 2D, 3D building block, I think you called it, for so many different systems and interfaces.
Yes, exactly.
All right, awesome. Tell me a little bit about the Teralens server multi-format map tile server. Did I say that right? I said
server. A lot of words there too.
A lot of servers in there.
But we provide a server capability that that users can tap into to bring in map tiles to their applications. There's a lot of different ones out there. We handle like raster tiles, strain data, vector formats, mil-spec symbology, everything that we can push in over our tile, over our server. So it's an added capability. It's a value add. I think people are seeing now that's an imagery that's coming. Here's an example of a picture that we push through over our tile server through an application. Really high performant, high resolution imagery as well. We also have a product that we call Creator, which allows an end user to locate the map data that they have. A lot of times people have map data, they don't know what it is, it's just a file. Creator allows them to preview it, select geographical areas that they would like to import. You can also apply style sheets to the maps. Like a lot of people will use OpenStreetMaps, and they have some styles that come with them, But there are many things that you can do with those to make them look better, to make them be more effective for whatever your end use case is. So that creator allows that. We also have, we talked about the Iris family a little bit, where we have the ground control station and we have Iris terminal that are enabling. Iris terminal's main process, our main feature is to help enable visual BVLOS operations and adapts to all kinds of sensors. That way, you don't just buy that product today and be like, if there's a new sensor comes out, I'm not going to be able to use this anymore. No, that's not how we designed it, so that it consistently will stay up to date for the end user. And one other area that's a little, I like to tell people we're a niche company that has a bunch of little niches that we do inside of it. One of the other areas is we have a product called iSim, which is a high fidelity air traffic control and air traffic simulator. So it's used by the FAA. It's used in multiple different programs. It's also used by the U.S. Navy and an embedded trainer for all their big deck amphib and air traffic. I'm completely coming back.
So for like airspace
aircraft carrier, that's the word I'm looking for.
Airspace like design, right? Like, so the FAA is using that, the military is using that. I mean, once again, I'm going back, my brain is just spinning because I'm thinking, the FAA in July put out this fact sheet about airspace and kind of federal preemption and who controls what. And they literally said, hey, we, air corridors, that's our lane. And I'm thinking, okay, you designing those anytime soon? And then when I hear about the iSim ATM simulator, you might have to change the name and make it broader to be airspace, integration simulator or something, because I can see this for UTM. Absolutely. And these air corridors, I think this is going to be critical to be able to visualize it before, you go live.
And we work for some partners in that space that ATAC is a company that we do a lot of work with, who records all the air traffic in the U.S. And with iSim, you can actually replay that lot to make it look live, and you can manipulate it. So, for example, if you are going to fly a unmanned platform in a certain area, say you're going to do it on a Tuesday, a lot of times days of the week, at least your passenger traffic airlines are flying basically the same routes every day. Mm-hmm. So you could put those in and say, I'm going to do this on a Tuesday. Here's what traffic in this area looked like last Tuesday. So I know I'm going to have some of these conflicts, and you can look at ways to avoid them just based on historic data.
Wow, that's awesome. Now, we've been talking a lot of about the kind of visualization tools, but you also have a command and control product. This MDCS multi-domain control station. Tell us a little bit about that.
So this was a program that we did up in Canada, where we actually developed an application using Teralens that was controlling an airborne unmanned platform, a surface unmanned platform, and a subsea unmanned platform all at the same time.
What? That's insane. Think about that. Yeah.
It's pretty neat. It was a lot of it was kind of some R&D work for our end user, because they were trying to figure out how do we really want to do this? What makes sense? Because they've got some future requirements to do that on a larger scale. And basically, some of the main system was the underwater platform, and then the others were kind of comm relays, but also have an ability to do some of their own work while they're out there as well. So it was really neat. There was a tons of lessons learned what's the best way to display all this different information, and how do you control these three at the same time, with a little bit of what we talked about earlier, without overwhelming the operator and giving them too much information. So there's a lot of going back and forth, some pretty cool testing. And it was very neat to be able to do that and say that we've actually, controlled 3 different domains of unmanned vehicles at once.
This is tip of the spear kind of stuff. And when I again think about how what the military does can translate and eventually be commercialized into civil society, I think about multimodal transportation systems, right? I mean, I was just at NBAA, National Business Aviation Association's Business Aviation Conference and Expo what a mouthful, BACE. They got to shorten that, by the way. And, Whisk, they're a Google company. They're designing the Cora aircraft, the eVTOL, electric vertical takeoff landing. And, they're I think one of the few companies actually designing autonomy from the start. They are never going to have a pilot on board. Like, that is not their plan. And when you think about this idea that they're talking about, like, oh, we're going to have an Uber, you take your Uber to the Cora, you hop on the Cora, fly over traffic, get on your Uber on the back end or whatever it is. Someday those Ubers might be, a Waymo uncrewed vehicle.
Yeah.
And to be able to have one system that can track all of them, all of these autonomous things all at one time in a command center, that's what's going to have to happen. Because like you said, not only deconfliction, but just like schedules and all of it, safety. Wow, that's awesome. You're already doing that and with Teralens and with your military customers, because I think this is not just the future of the battlefield. This is the future, period, dot, everywhere. So that's awesome. Now, we've talked a lot about your various partnerships, kind of across the military side, but you've also got some amazing partnerships on the commercial side, like Iris Automation, by the way, who just joined forces with UAvionics, and John Damish is now the CEO of UAvionics. So that's really exciting. Talk about two powerhouse companies joining forces, but you've been working with Iris for a while. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we've actually been working with both of them. So now that they're together, it's very interesting. But I think what's really neat is with Iris Terminal, we integrate the Cassia G sensor. So then you have clients now have the option for a passive digital airspace deconfliction at a lower price point. And there are some limitations to that. Right now it's gonna be daytime and good weather operations, but it's just an example of how we can bring in different types of sensors of information out there. The more sensors, I think, the better it's going to be. That way you can you can start correlating the sensors together, which we have some capability to do that as well, to give you a better picture. Because every sensor out there is going to have some natural error into it, whether it's a radar, whether it's acoustic, whether it's visual. And so the more info that you can get together, the more accurate picture you can present.
Yeah, you're preaching the choir here. I work a lot with True Weather Solutions, and they're putting out this weather sensor network across the country. They actually work with Iris as well, because that ground radar can pick up some relevant information on the weather side, to my knowledge and understanding. So that's something you can also. We talked a lot about the hardware, the different vehicles, the software that you guys can align with, but the sensor piece of it, obviously. I guess that's kind of a fusion of hardware and software, if you will. Very, very huge, very critical.
Yeah, so when we talk about Iris, and I always said it's more of a system. So you kind of have the display application software, but we use DDS, which is a data distribution system. It's a publish subscribe middleware that actually Big Kongsberg is one of the commercial providers of. There's, I think, 6 or 7 commercial providers of that software, and it's a real-time, publish subscribe middleware software. So we have a bunch of different, in Iris, we have a bunch of different services that run on that DDS backbone that can integrate and bring these sensor data in, and then apply that fusion, or not, I won't say fusion, I'll say correlation services to it. And it also gives us the ability, if we have an end user that already has, maybe they have their own correlation engine that they've developed specific to what they're trying to do, we can plug that in with low risk, because it's not going into the bigger application code. It's kind of, it's open design, open modular type of system. So any type of sensor out there we can quickly integrate with, whether it's, radar, if it's, a standard Cat 48 type of input, or if there's even some radars have, faster proprietary feeds that they can put out that you can get quicker update rates. And especially if you start looking at counter UAS, that can be very key, because you need that you need the position updates very, very quickly. So maybe you need a custom feed for that. But yeah, I think counter. We talked a little bit about it. I think counter UAS is the next natural area where we'll probably have Iris get employed into, because we can already bring all that. We can already bring those sensors in, and we can display that type of information today. And I think Big Kongsberg also has it on its future roadmap of areas that they want to look at, and I think Iris may be front and center for them as well with the larger. When you start looking at it in a larger and a bigger picture.
Well, when you talk about big picture, I just feel like the different market use cases, for lack of a better term, are really kind of endless. I mean, because you're doing geospatial interfaces, and I think about land, I think about who cares about land. Just like take an example, because I think you mentioned this in Clubhouse, soil moisture. And I didn't get a chance to mention this, but right here in Colorado, Black Swift Technologies out of Boulder has this soil moisture sensor they're working with, and with their S2 drone. And, highly relevant if you're, let's just say, the Air Force wanting to lay down some concrete on a bear base out in the middle of, nowhere country, as you're ramping up operations. I mean, that's an amazing application. Then you think on the commercial side, building just any building on, from a construction standpoint. So yeah, absolutely. So I think those applications are endless. And we only have a couple minutes left, but before we get to, your kind of roadmap and what you're looking at for next year and the years coming, I do want to mention some great achievement that Phoenix Air Unmanned attained in collaboration with you and the FAA. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, so PAU they received the FAA exemption for their Swiss drone aircraft. There are a lot of players, obviously, that were involved in that, and we're just proud to provide the common operating picture for them through the Iris terminal, allowing them to work to help deconflict that airspace. Yeah, it's pretty neat to be a part of that team. It's a pretty amazing process, and I mean, I can't even imagine the number of hours that they put into it to get that waiver. And so we're just happy to be a part of that team, and with our Iris terminal product.
Well, and not only that, but this waiver is really a groundbreaking waiver, no pun intended, because other people, this is one of 4 that the FAA recently approved that other people can now look at, and that you can kind of mold your operation around that similar ConOps. The FAA will be more likely to fast track that, because they know that the safety case is real. And so that speaks volumes for Iris Terminal and Teralens and what you guys are doing. So, congratulations on that with the whole team. So we are just a couple minutes out, Adam, and I want to make sure we give you an opportunity to talk about, what's kind of on the horizon. I mean, here we are almost at the end of 2023. What do you see going forward in the 2024 and beyond? For Teralens or for Kongsberg Geospatial?
I think as far as Teralens, we're going to be continuing to add capability. I think one of the things that we're seeing a lot of customers talking about is, how do I integrate AI with your product? We're not an AI company. I'm not sure we ever have a desire to be such, but I think it's a natural input into Teralens, and using our software to help feed an AI engine to give those kind of cues and capability that software is going to have. I think that's probably the next big game changer in command and control. It'll be interesting to see where that goes over the next couple of years. But I think with that, I think we talked a little bit about, on the Iris side of the house, probably counter UAS will be our next natural market area that we start to look at. That we've already had some people coming to us, they're like, hey, we like Iris. What would it do to put it in this kind of environment? And so I think you'll see some area there. But I think the key thing is we focus on it. We've decided to focus on a couple areas to maintain our strength in them, and that real-time situational awareness command control is one of those. You know, we say we enable mission critical decisions, and whether that is on the military side or that's on the civilian commercial side, I think that's where you'll continue to see our focus.
Well, that's awesome. And we are actually at time, so that's perfect. So how can people reach you, Adam?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's Adam Robinson, or you can email me at adam.robinson@kongsberggeospatial.com. And it's probably the two best ways.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you again so much. This was a wonderful journey, understanding Teralens, how it's the building block to so many different platforms on the defense side for years and on the commercial side now with great success with Iris Terminal, getting these groundbreaking waivers with people like Phoenix Air Unmanned. So everybody stay tuned for more from Kongsberg Geospatial. You're going to keep seeing their names out there doing great things. And we thank you again for sponsoring our Crossover Tech Month. Everybody, we are out here.